this is a different look right here. Oh, there it is. The 20s. Oh my god, is this it? Is this the making of the gates? Or the installation of the gates? Oh, that's a new face. Holy shit, it is. That's Bartosz. That is just insane casting. That's insane.
Du glaubst nicht mehr an die Prophezeiung?
That's Bartosz.
Ich glaube an die Ironie des Schicksals. Hat er dich deshalb geschickt?
And that's a new face.
Ich habe lange auf diesen Moment gewartet.
Wow.
Interessant, dass du es bist.
Oh.
Ich hoffe, dass irgendwann der Tag kommt, an dem du nicht mehr alles glaubst, was Adam dir erzählt. Frag ihn, warum er dich aufgenommen hat. Und warum er dich Noah
Ah, it's young Noah. Wow. Oh. Wow. Ugh. Yeah, he looked like he was ready for that. Ah, the homie Bartosz, man. Whoa, 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 whoa. I saw some kind of photo there. Shit. I'm gonna pause and go back to that. Beginning of the last cycle. Similar to season 1, episode 1. Oh. This has to be a dream.
Ich finde, wir passen perfekt zusammen.
Wow.
Ich hab nie etwas anderes.
It's a beautiful shot. Look at this. Jonas. Wow. Whoa. Yeah, you're gonna carry that, homie. Again, just like season 1, episode 1. Wow. Wow. He's gonna carry that as well and give it back to himself at some point, right? In that package. Oh, the bunker.
Mein Name ist Claudia Tiedemann. Ich bin eine der wenigen Überlebenden der Apokalypse vom 27. Juni 2020. Es sind jetzt fast 3 Monate nach der Katastrophe. Noch einmal ist unklar, was genau die Ereignisse in Linden ausmachen.
That's 86 Claudia's voice, though.
Zurück in die Vergangenheit. Vielleicht können wir sie retten.
Okay. Interesting.
Wir sollten sie wieder stationär behandeln.
Oh.
Auf keinen Fall. Ich will hier bleiben.
Gut.
Ah, Katharina. Whoa. Whoa. Okay, so she's been doing her own thing from the looks of it, eh? It looks like she knows enough to go into the caves. Or explore the caves. Wow. She's so pretty. Ah, look at this. Once again, whoa, just like episode 1. Jonas. Same music, same score, right? This time it's Marta, though. Forest Road. Man, I can't stop thinking about that opening, though, and that casting. And how it's kind of flipped. Older Bartosz and young Noah in 1921. So there's the 4 points of the Pentagon, right? Sorry, 5 points of the Pentagon.
Du bist irgendwie anders.
Yeah, he's got a lot of things going on, too.
Ich hab das Gefühl, du verheimlichst mir was.
Not wrong there.
Ich weiß überhaupt nicht, was mit dir los ist.
Was mit mir los ist?
I mean, and his mom.
Verdammte Scheiße, meine Mutter stirbt. Das ist mit mir los. Wenn du auch nur die geringste Ahnung davon hättest, welche Scheiße gerade bei mir abgeht.
Von der Scheiße, die bei dir
They're all going through it, man. All of them.
Falls du es vergessen hast, mein Vater und mein Bruder sind verschwunden.
I feel so incredibly sad about that opening.
Besser so.
You know, seeing Bartosz here again, just Yeah, that's Noah. His theme kicked in. Oh wow.
Aber die Welt da draußen pocht auf Fortschritt.
Right. It's supposed to close down, right? That was set up in episode 1 of season 1.
In 6 Tagen wird unser Meiler endgültig
In 6 days.
Das ist für uns alle ein
Oh, it's a dramatic one, all right. Ooh, I'm loving this score right now. It's really similar to the 9 Inch Nails Quake score, for those who know. Look at this, just like Ines, but this is Hana, right? A lot of similarities to episode 1, as expected of a show like this. Oh. Oh no, don't do it, don't do it. Okay. Wow. Oh!
Hallo?
It is, it is!
Wer sind Sie?
I was gonna say, it's a key.
Was wollen Sie hier?
Is this it?
Sie haben den Schlüssel.
Das ist mein Schlüssel. Aber hör mir einfach nur
Oh
zu.
my god, he's gonna tell her. The timing of that was interesting as well.
Ich bin vor über einem halben Jahr aus deinem Leben verschwunden. Und du hast mich vor mehr als 33 Jahren. Es hat geregnet, weißt du noch?
Chernobyl?
Opa und du, ihr wolltet mich mitnehmen im Auto. Du hast gesagt, dass der Regen noch sauer ist wegen Tschernobyl.
Wow. Wow.
Ich hatte meine gelbe Jacke.
He does look like him. Look at this.
Ich bin's.
Jonas.
Wow.
Aber das kann
He looks so much more like him right now. Wow. Wow. You see that angle? Look just like Jonas.
Keinen Zufall. Jeder Weg ist
Ja.
vorherbestimmt.
She has her redeeming qualities.
Aber die wenigsten von uns wissen, wohin ihre Reise geht.
Holy shit, is that the map? The one Jonas sent? Whoa. Okay, more on that later. I think it's the same map, maybe.
Du hast deinen ersten
Ah, the
Schritt
church.
getan.
Whoa. The guard particle, right? Whoa, who's this? Oh! Two different eye colors? Or is she blind in one eye? Oh my god, is this
Niemand darf die Todeszone betreten.
the
Der
zone?
Versuch wird mit dem Tod bestraft.
Is that Ellie Doppler?
Wir sind die Zukunft. Sigmundus Creatus est.
Was wollten die Männer hinter der Mauer?
Oh, easy, easy now, Jonas. Yeah. It is! Wow. Yeah, I still need to meet them, Ellie.
Deine Mutter war noch klein, als sie gestorben sind.
Is that so?
Komm.
Okay. I still kind of have a little bit of snot from the Hannah Jonas scene. Incredible scene, man. Wow. Okay, so yeah, it looked like Katharina was on a mission, all right. She's been doing her own investigation. So is it possible that Katharina wrote that? The crossing in that map? If it is the same map. I mean, it's starting to feel like everyone's gonna be in on it. The time travel aspect of this.
Wo liegt der Ursprung?
Whoa.
All diesen Leids. Hast du Bartosz Bescheid gegeben? Und er hat keinen Verdacht
Holy shit.
Er war schon immer naiver Natur.
This is Adam, eh? Whoa. There had to be something bigger. I knew it. There had to be some kind of presence behind Noah.
Es bleibt nicht mehr viel Zeit.
Who is this, man?
Die fehlenden Seiten aus dem Buch.
Ah, the missing pages.
Du musst sie finden. Noch 6 Tage.
You know, earlier I kind of felt that maybe it's kind of like Cain and Abel. Young Noah killing older Bartosz.
Ich bin jetzt hier und ich bin in all den Sekunden zwischen meiner Geburt und meinem Tod. Ich bin der gleiche. Und doch nicht dasselbe.
Right.
Aber wo ist Jonas? Wo ist mein Jonas?
Er ist in der Zukunft. Er versucht die Passage zu zerstören, aber ich habe sie geschossen. Deswegen ist er immer noch dort.
Warum bist du hier?
Something down there? Buried? Oh, God. Light and shadow. Okay. So Adam and Eve, perhaps, right? There's a lot of biblical references. So yeah, I'm guessing it's meant to be Adam and then Eve. So if that was Adam, is there an Eve? Ah, I need to get a look at it. Shit. I think I saw Noah. Yeah. But that photo is from Agnes. Ah, I want it. So this is the 1920s time? The four families? Okay, so clearly the four families have a long history. Wow. That was really similar to some of the lighting from The Lighthouse, the Robert Eggers film. Is this the beginning for Bartosz? Now hold on. See, he time traveled, but Stranger, Future Jonas just said he closed it accidentally. He tried to destroy it, but he just closed it. Now is this because of the... He's got a suitcase. Does that mean he has a contraption in there? Bartosz. I like Bartosz, man. I really do. And again, I'm so sad about that. Oh, whoa. Whoa. They're doing their own thing. Bartosz?
8. Januar 1921. Sigmundus Creatus.
So they're kind of like this cult, or...
Wer sind diese Leute? Warum hatte dein Großvater das?
Yeah, that's the real question. So someone else came to Tannhaus as well. Agnes. Agnes knew all about... I'll get into that later. Yeah, that's Claudia right there. Oh, I'm loving this. They're doing their own thing. Young Noah. I'm so excited about young Noah. Careful, Jonas. Ellie Doppler in the future. This post-apocalyptic future Ellie Doppler is ruthless from the looks of it. Wow. Yeah, that... You might want to put on the suit, Jonas. Okay, so they buried all those barrels. Yeah, that's the spot. That's the same spot. Oh. I thought he's gonna get attacked again, like knocked out again. All right, folks. Okay, there it is. Season 2, episode 1. Yeah. As you could tell, I was really quite excited for that. Even though, you know, I just recently watched the season 1 finale, this felt like such a big deal to me, right? You know, part of me actually kind of felt like I was coming back to these characters after a long time, even though it's not like that at all, right? Anytime I saw the first appearance of one of the characters, I kind of had that same excitement that you would have after like a year or two of not seeing them. It's kind of hard to explain, but I did have that same type of excitement. Perhaps it's just an indication of just how much I really enjoy these characters, how much I like these characters, how much I adore many of these characters, and I do. If you've been around my channel for some time now, you could probably tell by this point that, you know, this is probably one of the most exciting times for me on the channel, going through Dark. And, you know, this episode certainly kept that hype train going, man. Oh my goodness. There's just an insane amount of stuff in this episode. I think it was already clear in the first season that this is about to be so thematically ambitious, that it is thematically ambitious. I could tell just by, you know, the 10 episode span. This episode, season 2, episode 1, the beginning of this new cycle, essentially. You know, this appears to be kind of reiterating that, yes, this is certainly thematically ambitious. I mean, it's so ambitious in so many different elements. And again, you know, all those things I loved about season 1 are certainly present here. It's certainly not one of those shows that you could just jump into, right? It's not one of those shows that, oh, this episode might be a good jumping on point. No, you need to experience this from the beginning. You need to experience every single episode in detail, right? There is no jumping on points here. Right? No. And I'm sure so many of you probably binge season 1 or, you know, go through it once again in detail before season 2 started. Again, I'm not sure how long the time span was or how long the break was from season 1 to 2. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, I have no idea. But I know this much. I was still just as excited to get back to these characters, even though I just saw them not too long ago in the season 1 finale, right? That right there tells me just how special this is to me, how much it means to me just to see these characters on screen once again. And I had that giddy excitement once again. You know, I'm seeing guys or characters like Peter Doppler and I'm getting excited. Seeing him smile is making me happy and just excited to, you know, go through these lives and journeys, through these cycles essentially, right? Yeah, I'll get into that. Like I said, there's so much to get into. Let's focus on the ending there and Jonas, future Jonas at this point. You know, you see that he is transitioning into that stranger I knew from season 1, right? You see this is kind of like the midsection of that, perhaps. You see that his hair is getting long, right? Certainly starting to resemble future Jonas. I have to stop calling him stranger now because I know it's future Jonas. But you know, I do kind of like to call him stranger Jonas, or stranger still. Yeah, you know, the resemblance is starting to get there now. You see even the actor who plays Jonas, 2019 Jonas, he's grown up a bit. I mean, in that sense, many of the teen actors certainly had a bit of a, you know, change in appearance. You see Magnus, he's looking much older as well in the face. I'm loving his new look. I mean, in that sense, it's kind of, you know, clear that it's the male actors who kind of had a bit of a shift in their look in the time off, right? In the time span it took to film and deliver season 2. Yeah. But, you know, in this kind of story, it's just perfect, isn't it? Them aging normally. But again, I don't want to go off on a tangent already. Let's kind of reel it back into the ending there. Jonas, he sneaks in. You're not supposed to go to the dead zone. It's punishable by death, as depicted in this episode. You see some of these outsiders, perhaps, outsiders to that region, came in the search of this God particle, right? They refer to it as God. You can't hide it. You can't have it to yourself, right? You can't keep it hidden. Yeah, that was punishable by death. So I think I have my answer here. Jonas's rope burns. I think Ellie Doppler, the future Ellie Doppler here, is going to, you know, at least attempt to hang Jonas. And I say attempt because I know he doesn't die, right? But he is about to face that punishment. I think it's crystal clear at this point that they are going to try to hang him at least. But somehow he gets out of it, right? Yeah, but you know, he broke in. The God particle is there. I mean, they're referring to it as the God particle, so I'm going to refer it as the God particle as well, right? He sees it. It seems to be quite unstable. But you know, that being said, you see that there seems to be some activity on the table there. You see maybe some of the terminals might have been used. I mean, you know, they bring our attention to it. They bring Jonas's attention to that he does notice these things. So it appears that someone's been in there before. You know, people have tried, or some individual has tried to kind of do something there, right? And I think it's clear to see, you know, again, if you go back to the 2020 time period, now this God particle, you see the placement of it, the location of it is the exact same location. The barrels are buried in concrete, right? So something happened, something, I don't know. Again, as of this point, you know, I can only say the same thing Claudia mentioned on that tape. 86 Claudia on that tape, who is a survivor, one of the only few survivors of the apocalypse, right, of 2020. So that in itself is quite exciting. It's an exciting prospect. But, you know, she doesn't seem to know either the cause of this. But I'm guessing some kind of, once again, some kind of explosion happened, perhaps, right? Radioactive explosion or something set it off, right? Let's see. But, you know, it was clear in the season 1 finale that, yes, there's been something apocalyptic at play, a hellish future. And, you know, they hinted at that right in the beginning of this series as well. You know, you go back to season 2, you see the stranger who is future Jonas. Yeah, you see him come out of the bathroom or the shower, and you just see that he's been through a hellish future. Yeah, now I'm going to get to see 2019 Jonas go through that. And, you know, I've seen already some of that life he's living now. But yeah, he stays in the same house. He sleeps in the same bed. And he's still having those nightmares, or he's still, you know, having these dreams. And this time the dream isn't much of a nightmare in that sense. I mean, I guess if, you know, the whole uncle and aunt angle, maybe in that sense, it could be a nightmare for Jonas, but it's not set up as a nightmare. And, you know, this time, you see in the dream, Jonas is telling her that they are a perfect match and don't believe anything else. Yeah, I mean, it's clear that the Jonas and Marta connection and their relationship is certainly a big part of this story, and that it is going to continue to play a part. And maybe I don't even know the extent of that just yet, right? But yeah, I think even in the opening, I did watch the opening this time. Even in the opening, there's this one shot. It's the same effect, of course. The mirror effect from the first opening. It's shots of Jonas, and then in the middle you see Marta. Though I think maybe even she was kind of mirrored in the middle. But you see, I thought it was quite noticeable that the style of her hair, or the hairstyle, it made it look like she had horns, right? Or the parts. Oh, actually, I guess yeah, it is mirrored then, right? Because there's two parts in her hair. That made it kind of look like she has horns, right? So it's kind of playing on some of that imagery. I thought it was quite unmissable. Let's see how that kind of plays into the rest of the story and, the thematic setup of it all. But yeah, Jonas is in there. I think it's pretty clear. That's one of the things about this type of show, right? I mentioned, or this type of setup and this type of story, I mentioned in season 1 even, that you do know how some of these things are meant to play out. Right? You already kind of know the roadmap. So I know that Jonas is meant to get the rope burns, and now I know how exactly he's going to land himself in that situation. He broke into the dead zone, and for my fellow Tarkovsky enjoyers, I think maybe there's a bit of a reference to the zone, right, from Stalker. But yeah, the dead zone here in Dark, he's not supposed to go there, but he does go there, and I was expecting him to get knocked out again. But no, not this time. But he is going to be found out, or maybe he's going to reveal that he's been in there. So perhaps Jonas might confront her about this. And yeah, it kind of goes downhill from there for Jonas. And he might be, up there, hanging up there at some point. I mean, I know he's going to be hung up there at some point, but I also know that he survives and he lives on. So that in itself is quite exciting to see how all of this is going to play out. As of this point, I'm not sure who the translator is, right? I mean, it's got to be someone's daughter. I mean, of course, it's someone's daughter, but you know what I mean? Like, it's got to be someone I know. Maybe it's their offspring, right? That survived. But going back to Claudia and the 86 Claudia on that tape saying that, she's one of the few survivors of the 2020 apocalypse, that confirms that, 86 Claudia does travel to 2019, right? Or did travel to 2019. Not only that, she actually, or maybe not, maybe she did travel from 87 to 2020, right? That's possible as well. It doesn't have to be 2019 and doesn't have to be 86 and all of that. It could be 87 to 2020. And I believe that's just how it's going to play out here. Claudia is going to time travel to 2020. Right? That's 100% locked on here, given that tape. So that's exciting. 86 Claudia is also going to be on her own journey, right? Much like 2019 Jonas. And then from the looks of it, she kind of grows up in this future. She grows up from 2020 and beyond. And then, I've seen the future Claudia show up at the tail end of season 1. Ooh, actually, I kind of want to talk about Marta real quick, and you'll have to forgive me for jumping back and forth, but there's just so much in this episode. So I feel like if I have something to say, I kind of immediately have to get to it, right? So Marta's grave. I noticed that her grave is certainly a bit more noticeable than the rest. It felt special. Her grave from be it Alexander Tiedemann's grave or some of these others. So in that sense, I feel like maybe some of these survivors might have had a relation to Marta in that sense, right? Maybe that's the reason it kind of feels special, that there's a bit more care in that gravesite, right? In that cross. I don't know. That's the feeling I was getting from this, that it's certainly a distinct gravesite for Marta. And again, they bring our attention to that one as the last one they show on screen before it kind of, cuts to 2020 Marta. Again, one of the really noticeable things about this episode was things repeating like they were repeating in episode 1 of the series. You see, it's like a carbon copy of the same scene of Jonas on his bike. Same music, right? Same score. She's taking the same road, though she took the forest road. They didn't show me Jonas taking the forest road, right? Though of course she is trying to go meet Bartosz, so she had a reason to go take a different route. But yeah, almost like a carbon copy of that scene. I mean, I think it's clear. If it wasn't clear before, it's certainly really clear at this point, after episode 1 of season 2, that Marta is a major player in this series. There's a lot of setup there to, you know, hint at that. And, you know, speaking of setup and clear setup and indication, it really was starting to feel like that all of these characters are going to be in on the time traveling aspect of this. You know, she took a dive into that investigation. The same investigation Ulrich was in the process of before he goes missing, before he ends up in 1986, though now it's 1987, right? Oh, no, sorry. Before he ended up in 1953, but now that should be 1954, right? Everything has moved on 6 months. So yeah, and you know, this episode was following June 21st, right? In the different time periods. Oh, actually, again, before I forget, the calendar. There appears to be a bit of an anomaly there, right? You see that in 2020, Hannah crossed off June 21st, right? But then you also see that in 53, it's not crossed off. Okay, of course, a few possibilities. Maybe it's not the same calendar at all, but you know, in 6 days' time, there was this apocalypse. So who's kind of replaced the calendar in that time, right? So I'm pretty sure it's meant to be the same calendar. Yet you see that the 21st is not crossed off. Most interesting, right? Most interesting, most puzzling, actually. It should be crossed off. It really should be crossed off if it's the same calendar, but it's not. See, I don't want to go off on a tangent here and go down a rabbit hole that might not lead to any destination, but is this an indication? Is this a slight hint at an alternative timeline? Yes, you know, I know. It's firmly established that, you know, there's only one timeline, that it's a cycle that repeats itself. But, you know, there is an anomaly here. There is something off here, and they really bring your attention to that, don't they? No, I'm not saying it's alternative timeline in the sense that Jonas is just never going to, you know, return to you know, the time period the audience has been following since episode 1 of the show. Because he does. That stranger, or that Jonas, does grow up to become the stranger, and he does return. And he certainly returns in this timeline or time period in 2020. And he's much more open about his identity. You see that it's kind of changed now, right? He's not really a stranger in that sense. He is opening up. He is staying at one place, and he is revealing his identity. And, you know, again, that being said, you know, this tiny bit of change, one of the other prominent time travelers of the story, Noah, there's a bit of a change in his disposition as well, right? Or at least his stance. You see, as he's speaking with his younger self, it doesn't feel like he's taking that, the ends justify the means approach that he was taking with Helge, right? You see, there's been a bit of a change in his demeanor. Here, it's the opposite, right? And, you know, I really like how he's taking this approach with his younger self. It's clear that, you know, this is him. You know, this is Noah taking his own approach. This is not Adam. It feels like he's really trying to instill some of these beliefs and motives or motivations and ideals into his younger self. Anytime he gets a chance, just him and his younger self. That's the feeling I was getting here. You know, that the things he's saying here are the things he's saying to himself. You know, these things are not coming from Adam. I'll get to Adam in a bit. I mean, wow. You know, and speaking of people being through hell and back again, you know, this character Adam, yeah, his appearance, quite unmissable, of course. So he certainly had his own dark experiences. You know, before I go any further, I don't think this is a brand new character. I am so sure this is someone I know already. That's just the nature of this story. That's just the nature of the setup and this show. This has to be someone I know already, right? But as of this point, I'm not really able to take a swing at it. Not just yet. I don't think there's enough there yet for me to take a swing at it. It really could be anyone. I mean, not anyone, but it really could be a handful of prominent characters that have been established in the show already, right? But I'm sure it is someone I know or I've seen so far already. I mean, hell, could it even be another Noah, right? I don't know, man. I mean, there seems to be a bit of a height difference, so maybe it's not Noah. a future Noah. But yeah, it turns out indeed there is this shadowy organization, there is this cult, there is this secret society, right? Sic mundus creatus est. You see that they believe in that, the prophecy, and this appears to be the prophet Adam. But that being said, and given the the biblical references of this show, the prominent biblical references of this show, it's been heavily featured in the first season, and it continues into season 2, part 1 here, season 2, episode 1. At one point it started to become kind of clear that maybe this is taking a bit of an Adam and Eve approach. And to me, that started to come into play as Ellie Doppler is going through some of those books, some of her great-grandfather's books, the late Tannhaus. I mean, that specific layout, the double page spread, is kind of reiterating the whole, light and shadow nature of this. And then, at first, before the camera starts to sweep across, I thought, that's meant to be a depiction of God. But no, it sweeps to the right and you see a female figure, right? So yeah, that made me really think of the possibility of Adam and Eve being at play here. And, I felt like even earlier in the beginning of the episode, I thought, there's a bit of Cain and Abel at play here, a bit of a reference to that. As young Noah kills who I firmly believe to be Bartosz. I think that is undeniable. The casting is so incredible here that I think it's impossible to miss here. I think anyone should be able to clock that is Bartosz, right? That is just insane casting on display once again. I mean, it's jaw-dropping. It is jaw-dropping. The moment I realized that this is older Bartosz in 1921, I mean, that in itself is insane. But yeah, like I said, I was really quite sad to see Bartosz in this episode, seeing his older self die like that. Though he was expecting it. He was certainly expecting it, and he was ready for it. He turned his back to young Noah, almost in a sense that he wanted to make it easy for him, right? He didn't put up a fight, and yeah, he accepted it. And you see in his mannerisms, in his demeanor, that he's quite dejected. He certainly lost faith in this prophecy of theirs. The beginning and the end are the same, or the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning. All of that stuff, right? The paradise prophecy in 6 days' time. But also, it's also the beginning of the next cycle, the final cycle, according to Noah's notebook, right? So, on one end, it's kind of setting it up as this apocalypse that happens in 2020, yet it is also meant to be the beginning of the final cycle. So I'm guessing that's going to be season 3, right? The final cycle, right? The third cycle in that sense. So I guess I'm in cycle number 2 right now. And season 1 was cycle number 1, and it was 8 days long, right? And yeah, apparently 8 days has biblical references, as expected. I was sure it has some references or some connotations, biblical connotations perhaps, and it did. I knew about the infinite symbol. I mean, I pointed that out in episode 2, right? On the door. I knew about 8 and the infinite symbol, but my question was more about biblical references. But again, I can't really look those things up. I don't want to be spoiled, right? I feel like even the slightest thing could lead to a spoiler. So, I'm not going to take any risk in terms of looking things up. But yeah, I think I'm so far off on a tangent at this point, but I'll kind of continue on, the 1921 time period. Yes, there it is. It appears that hint on Franziska's hoodie, that actually meant something. I wasn't overthinking it. It feels like that was meant to be a clue. The 5 points of the Pentagon, the 5 time periods, right? I've seen 5 now. At this point in time, 1920, 2019, 1986, 1953, and 2052. Though, of course, now it's, 6 months on and it's moved on to the next year. But you know what I mean, right? So that's the 5 points. Yeah, I think that's certainly meant to be a hint on her hoodie. The 5 points of the Pentagon. Wow, 1920. How about that? The 20s. But yeah, so Bartosz, he grows up. He finds himself in the 20s at that point in time, at least. He's got the same ink that Noah ends up putting on his back later at some point. You see the creation of the tunnels, right? You see the installation of the doors, and it really felt like that. It really felt like that the first time I saw those doors, right? Those gates, that it's been there for a long time. It's been there for a long time. Though, given the setup or the nature of this story and the timeline of it all, that is happening at the same time that things are happening in 2020, right? That's the insane and exciting nature of it all. That you have Bartosz in a photograph from 1920s, right? Yet there he is in 2020 as well. Now, it'll be really interesting to see if, much like us, the audience, some of the characters are able to kind of clock the older versions of these people they know. I mean, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope someone is able to clock someone in some of these photos. And I'm speaking of someone's older self in one of these photos. But you see that Bartosz certainly played his part in it, even though to me it always felt like he was quite reluctant, right? Even there, young Bartosz in 2020, yeah, he was quite uneasy. He's not completely on board, and can you really blame him? Yet he still goes along, doesn't he? But you see here, a jaded older Bartosz doesn't believe in any of this stuff anymore. He kind of almost sees through Adam at this point. He hopes that, or he implores young Noah to kind of, question Adam at some point, or he hopes that he does question him at some point, and he doesn't blindly just follow him. And I think it's possible that, oh, holy shit, is it possible that Bartosz is the stranger Noah was speaking of in the season 1 finale? It could be. I mean, it was certainly strongly hinting at it being future Jonas, right? But yeah, it could be Bartosz, right? Maybe. Because to me, it really did feel like, Bartosz had that look of someone who kind of wants to die, right? These are the things or mannerisms he was explaining in the season 1 finale, and I'm speaking of older Noah now. Someone who's been through hell, right? All of that was present in Bartosz's demeanor. Older Bartosz, that is. Again, great acting. Beyond great casting, there was some great acting on display as well. But that whole notion of the beginning and the end, isn't it crazy that it was older Noah, right, that kind of recruits young Bartosz, but now you have young Noah ending Bartosz's life. And even that in itself kind of felt like an initiation, right? And on the other end, you have expulsion, essentially, right? Him being expelled from the secret society, perhaps because of, him not being a believer anymore, not being a true believer anymore. And it feels like maybe this was young Noah's first major, task, and it's a dark one at that. And you see that maybe even till this day, that older Noah probably holds some type of grudge against Adam. I don't get the feeling that he likes Adam, right? Yes, he seems to be following his directions, but I don't get the feeling that older Noah likes him, to be honest. I think he actually might hate him, given the setup here, showing us young Noah, that he might have a lot of resentment towards Adam and the things he made him do, right? And you see there's that poignant moment, right? I mentioned earlier in the church, he's speaking with his younger self, and it really felt like this is him trying to, instill these things into his younger self. There's nothing else behind it. There's no Adam behind that portion of it. He told him to just trust in yourself, believe in yourself, never forget. To me, that felt like a major moment of this. And as I'm on the topic of that secret society, this shadowy organization that I kept kind of, speaking of, or the potential of that, yes, I was on the right track. Yes, there is another presence beyond Noah. To me, it was starting to become clear that he's not just a lone wolf, that there is an attachment to some higher organization here. And yes, it's certainly on display here. And wow, that the HQ, essentially, wow, that is quite the sight, isn't it? Adam's HQ, I guess. And that appears to be 1921. That appears to be, and again, you can kind of pinpoint that because of the date on the back of the photograph that both Charlotte and Peter kind of come across, right? Or, young Ellie Doppler comes across it, points out Noah, and then Peter takes it to Charlotte. And, I love that they're doing their own thing in the bunker. Right, so once again, the bunker is a home for a map of photographs and evidence and clues and all that. So yeah, Peter Doppler. But I love that they're doing it together, right? There's no more secrets here. Again, there was they reconciled at the end of season 1, Peter Doppler and Charlotte. So now they're on the same team. I mean, there could be secrets, but as of this point, they seem to be on the same page for the most part. But yeah, you see that there's illustration of older Claudia, right? I guess Peter described her. And then, of course, there's an illustration of Noah, and now they can match it to the photograph. Yeah, they're in 1920s, right? Bartosz, older Bartosz, or Bartosz ends up in the 1920 time period at some point, and that is the place of his death. Now let's address the people in the photograph. Yes, there's at least half of them I just do not recognize. Some of them are much older. Some of them, I think in the back there was a much younger girl, right? But yeah, those people I don't recognize yet, at least, right? But there's at least 4 that I do recognize. Of course, they confirm that that individual is Adam, and he's clearly, the prophet, the leader of this secret society, essentially, right? Sic mundus creatus est. There's certainly hermetic connections here. That certainly plays a part in this episode. I mean, the photograph was found in a book of hermetic origin, essentially. And of course, they showed me the Ouroboros back in season 1, so that setup was there, even in season 1, right? That it is kind of leaning into that as well. And of course, Adam himself kind of mentions the endless cycle of life and death. Again, the Ouroboros, all of that, right? It all kind of plays into it. But yeah, in the photograph, there's certainly a hierarchy, right? You see that Noah is up front as well. You see Agnes Nielsen right beside Noah. So there's confirmation that, yes, in that episode, she knew that she is approaching her grandson. That is meant to be her grandson at some point. She knew it, right? And it all makes sense. It really felt out of place that a show this intelligent could have a moment like that, right? This lady, Agnes Nielsen, who just happens to come across her, future grandson, and she kind of proceeds to give this stranger, really, strange-looking stranger, to be honest, he's all bloody and he looks kind of out of place. She's quite, I don't know, she's not really scared about it. She gives up her name. I'm Agnes Nielsen. Oh, come meet my son, Tranta Nielsen, right? So that all felt a little too on the nose. So now it makes sense. Clearly she was sent there as well at that moment in time, or to be at that moment, or to be at that point at a specific moment in time. So yeah, she's part of this secret organization, this secret society. She's a member of it. And on the other side, it's the individual who I firmly believe to be Bartosz. Then in the middle, you have Adam. So yeah, let's see if these are older versions of people I already know in this story. I think it could be. I really think it could be. But then, there's that question that both Peter Doppler and Charlotte had. How come Tannhaus had that book, and how come he had that photograph? Did he even know that photograph was in there, right? I'm sure he did. So, that's the next question here. Who else has been going to Tannhaus? What's the motive behind giving him that, right? I mean, there's a reason for everything that's happening in this show. I'm just trying to, connect the dots right now. There's a reason that photo was in that book, and that Tannhaus had that book and had that photo, and now Peter Doppler and Charlotte have that photo, right? I feel like it was always meant to play out like this. Now, let's see if I can kind of circle back to my original point. I mean, there are no original points anymore. Folks, it is a bootstrap paradox. This discussion is a bootstrap paradox. There are no more original starting off points. I just kind of, go in circles and at some point kind of reach the point I was initially making before I do go off on a tangent. But going back to the calendar, right? The anomaly on the calendar that it doesn't have the X in 2053, right, as it should. I feel like, I feel like that's deliberate, right? In a show this intricate and this planned out, I feel like, that surely that can't be an oversight, right? I feel like that's deliberate, and it is bringing the audience's attention to it. So it kind of brings up this notion of perhaps there being the possibility of slight changes that, maybe even if things might be the same for the most part, there could be the possibility of slight changes, slight anomalies, right? So in that sense, it is exciting because now I really have to be on the lookout for any other slight anomalies. And, you know, one of the things that was clear in this episode is that they are drawing your attention to certain things. There's a lot of close-ups of people's faces, their eyes especially. So, you know, I'm taking notice of all these things. There's some really fantastic, deliberate storytelling in this, that has been established in the first season. Now, you know, the audience kind of has the roadmap, the style of storytelling that's being kind of, you know, presented here. So yeah, you know, I'm taking all of these things into account and keeping track of them, or trying my best. And of course, speaking of eyes, you know, Ellie Doppler, it appears that she ends up being blind in one eye. I mean, that was the first thing I noticed about that character, the heterochromia. But soon after, you know, the moment she starts speaking, it became clear, okay, there's only been one character that's been established in the story so far that matches this. It was Ellie Doppler, right? And of course, there's a fantastic cut. They love doing that cut. You know, the cut from a younger self to an older self, or from an older self to a younger self, perhaps. But yeah, let's see how Ellie Doppler gets to that point. You know, she's certainly quite hardened in this future apocalyptic setting. She's quite ruthless. She's quite cutthroat. And yeah, it feels like Jonas is about to feel the wrath of Ellie Doppler. Now, her translator, the fact that she is a translator, that in itself also has to mean something, you know. I doubt that it's just by a chance encounter that they kind of came across each other in this dystopian apocalyptic future, essentially. So does that mean maybe there is a connection there to Ellie Doppler to begin with, right? Yeah. But, you know, in that sense, that kind of reminds me, this whole notion of Noah speaking with Ellie Doppler back in the 2019 time period, he was able to communicate. So he knew how to communicate with Ellie Doppler. How about that, right? How about that? So he knew who Ellie Doppler is, so much so that he knew how to communicate with Ellie Doppler. He knew who Charlotte Doppler is. So yeah, there's a lot of connections here. I mean, everything's connected. In that sense, you know, that big moment of the four families being prominently featured, I guess it's another take on the season 1 map, right? Season 1, episode 1, the cold open, Claudia's map. This is like a different take. This is like Adam's map of the families and the connections. I think it's pretty clear at this point that there is so much that is connected here. I mean, all four families seem to be intertwined in eternity, right? For eternity, in this endless loop. And you know, that point I brought up in season 1 at one point, I think it was maybe in the last few episodes, the family trees might get even crazier. I think, yeah, they're about to get really crazy, aren't they? I think everyone's connected here. I think there's certainly going to be an overlap, right? Between all four of these families. A lot of crazy situations and relations. Now, the emergence of older Bartosz here in episode 2 kind of injects another really strange possibility, right? Really strange possibility that he might have had children, right? It's possible. I think it is possible. It's a long time. It's a really long time. So, but you know, the notion or the possibility or the idea I was trying to bring up here is that now that I've seen, you know, characters from, you know, the present timeline, or not the present, the 2019 timeline, the one the audience has been following prominently, essentially, characters from that are now being depicted in different time periods, right? Bartosz. I mean, the possibility is there that he actually might be someone's father. And by someone, I mean people I might have seen already in the show, right? It's kind of, again, it's strange to think about it, but this whole nature of the story and the timeline aspect of it and the time traveling aspect of it, it makes a lot of really crazy things possible, or it makes a lot of crazy possibilities possible, right? So let's see, let's put a pin in that and let's see if Bartosz had any kids, and if those kids end up being people I've already seen, characters I've already seen. And, you know, then that maybe starts going into that whole notion of these four families being intertwined and connections, all kinds of, you know, strange connections happening. I mean, they've already alluded to incest, right? You've got Jonas and Marta, right? You've got Ulrich and Hannah, right? He was having an affair with his grandson's mom, right? There's a lot of these crazy connections, and I feel like that might get crazier, especially given the setup in this episode. I mean, much like the season 1 opener, this one, season 2 opener, utilizes Nietzsche as the opening quote, right? So I think that certainly sets the tone. And if you go by that, it feels like this, in this season, these characters are certainly going to, face their own darkness or be faced with their own darkness, their own nature, right? The whole notion of not being able to escape that nature of theirs, that was a big thing in season 1. But yeah, that opening quote by Nietzsche certainly set the tone. And of course, later, this new investigator, detective, he's head of investigation now, brings up Freud. And again, I am using the North American pronunciation of it, Freud. Yeah. Again, it kind of goes into that whole notion of, people's actions speak louder than words, right? And you see that that's kind of the message he's trying to give to Charlotte. Not that Charlotte needs to be told how to do her job, right? She's one of the most established and one of the most competent characters of the show. Though, she does have something to hide in that bunker. You see that he's almost immediately kind of studying everyone. He certainly got a bad feeling, maybe, or some sort of feeling from our eye patch man who has a permanent eye patch installed into the glasses, or the glasses are kind of made up with the eye patch. So yeah, he seemed a bit iffy there. But yeah, this Clausen fellow, quite an interesting addition to the cast. And, his philosophy is certainly quite direct and distinct. In that sense, you could kind of even put him in that camp of, believing that everything happens for a reason, everything is predetermined. He mentioned that, he doesn't believe in coincidences, and, that this team up of theirs was always meant to happen, that they were always meant to come together. Maybe in that sense, if you take a swing at this in terms of who he might be or his background, and given, the nature of this show, I doubt he's just a simple investigator, a competent investigator that's been called in from the outside. I'm sure he has his own backstory and connections to some of this. Maybe he was sent to be a partner for Charlotte specifically. Maybe he was sent to overlook this investigation specifically, right? Could he have relations to the secret society? Is this their man even? Given the nature of this show and the things that are possible so far, it wouldn't be a shock to me if this is some sort of insider. He totally could be, or he totally could be an outsider who might provide a fresh new look at this. And, in that sense, you see that maybe someone wrote him a letter. It was addressed to Clausen. It didn't show me the contents of the letter he was reading as he's smoking. So it'll be interesting to see his reaction to some of these people that I've already seen and the things they've done or know, from season 1. On that front, in terms of, getting clues and getting leads, Regina came across the stranger's room, right? She came across everything he put up. Now, even that in itself, you have to question, did future Jonas deliberately leave all those things up there, right? Did he deliberately not take those things down? I think that's a possibility as well. But, beyond that, I think if he was to speak with Regina, yeah, some big things could come out of that, right? First of all, she could describe this individual, future Jonas, stranger. But then, future Jonas, stranger, had her deliver a package to Jonas, right? So, yeah, I feel like that seems like a likely stop for this Clausen fellow, right? And likely bit of information that he can extract from Regina. If she is open to sharing that information, it remains to be seen if she told anyone yet about the hotel room, right? The last thing she really wants is her hotel being associated with some crazy person that set up shop in one of the rooms, right? And, that person also had a photo of Mikkel, a missing child, in that room. So I don't know. I'm 50-50 on that. I don't know if Regina is open to sharing that information. But, speaking of Regina, it is really quite heartbreaking to see her in that condition. Really quite sad. You see that once again, all of these people, these characters are going through their own struggles, right? They have their own struggles, hidden nature, all of that. It's all still at play. Even more so in this season, you see that conversation Marta and Bartosz had. Both of them are struggling. You know, it's a lot. There's a lot of dysfunctional stuff going on here. A lot of dysfunctional families are at play here. But you know, speaking of families, I'd say one of my favorite moments of the entire series at this point, it was future Jonas coming back home, right, to his home, and convincing Hannah that indeed this is Jonas. I am Jonas. I am your son. Even though, you know, there's that notion of, you know, this isn't really my Jonas. And I'm speaking of Hannah, right? She even asked the question, you know, what about my Jonas? He's stuck in the future and he cannot get back because the passage was kind of closed. It wasn't destroyed, you know, the hole wasn't destroyed, just the passage ended up being closed. Yet Noah, future Noah, or a Noah from some point, is able to travel, and I think it's pretty clear that he probably has the contraption in that suitcase of his. But yeah, that was such an incredible scene. It was a really emotionally resonant scene. Again, brought me to tears, and you know, for two reasons. First of all, you know, someone like future Jonas finally getting this moment, right? Imagine him being out there that whole time, the hellish time he's been through, the hellish journey he's been on, to finally feel the touch of a loving mother. Wow, incredible moment. You see just how much that meant to him. Again, great acting on display. You know, just that touch, his mother's touch. Wow, it really meant so much to him. And you see just how much the incredible casting is at play here. There's a few angles there that are just insane. It looked like Jonas, 2019 Jonas, 2020 Jonas, or the Jonas I know, right? My Jonas, I guess. Wow. And it appeared that he was looking a bit more blonde than usual, right? The stranger. His hair was kind of brunette in the first season, but hair is really looking blonde, much like my Jonas, I guess. You know, I guess that's how I can differentiate, right? My Jonas is the one I've been following since season 1. Hannah's Jonas. Yeah, incredible casting on display, man. Wow. The eyes certainly played a part as well. There's that one shot as they hug and you see just the eyes and the long blonde hair. Wow. You know, jaw-dropping moment. But then also the other reason I got really emotional is Hannah's reaction. Yes, all of us know the type of person Hannah is, the type of toxic individual Hannah is. But I do feel like she does have that one redeeming quality. Maybe she might have more than one redeeming quality, but you know, that one certainly on display. Her love for her son as a mother, right? It kind of reminds me of Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. Not a likable person, right? A toxic individual for sure, but an incredible character, of course. You know, let's not forget that. No doubt about it. Cersei Lannister was one of the best characters of that show, but her love for her children was undisputed, right? I feel like it's the same for Hannah here, right? Yeah, incredible moment. Brought me to tears. Wow, it really was a great moment. But yeah, you know, future Jonas, stranger, is here, and there's that really strange moment of him kind of looking off at the floorboards. My first thought was maybe there's something buried there, or something that there is something in this house that he needs to get to, maybe. I don't know, right? He's here for a reason. So yeah, that's his new thing now. He's going to be staying here. But it feels like maybe Noah is replacing Tannhaus as the narrator of this season. You know, this time no Tannhaus at all, other than that photograph. But I do hope to see Tannhaus again. He's one of those he might not be one of the main characters, but he certainly has a role to play in all of this, a major role to play in all of this. He's one of my favorite side characters, essentially, right? The supporting cast. So I really do hope to see him again, and I'm sure I am going to see him again at some point once I do get back to the 53 timeline, but 54 at this point, right? The next time I get to it, much like it'll be 87 the next time I see that time period. But yeah, you know, you see he certainly reestablishes or reiterates the whole predeterministic nature of it all. Or the deterministic nature of this time loop, that there is no coincidence, every path is predetermined. So yeah, that whole thing is certainly being put out there again. And you know, in terms of Claudia's motivations, you see that 86 Claudia in that tape, she does mention that if they could stabilize the God particle, maybe they could set things right. Maybe they could save them. Maybe they could go back to the past and change things. So maybe that's the whole angle to this. Maybe that's older Claudia's goal in all of this, right? That she does want to set things straight. She wants to kind of go back and prevent this from happening, maybe. Though I think there's still much more to Claudia than that. But I think there's a bit of a hint, bit of a insight on some of her goals and motivations, perhaps. So yeah, is it possible that the other side, the shadow side, according to Noah, is actually Eve's side, right? And you have Claudia and then the people she's attached to, people like future Jonas or Jonas altogether, essentially. She brought in Trante and Peter. Tannhaus plays a part as well. So yeah, let's see if there's something there. I feel like, the biblical references they're kind of tough to miss here, right? They're really in there. So the whole concept of Adam and Eve isn't really far-fetched at all, given some of the imagery present in this episode as well. That book certainly made me immediately think of Adam and Eve. So yeah, let's see, man. And there's talk of paradise and hell on earth, or two of them being the same. Bartosz and his philosophy is certainly on display, or his stance is certainly on display. So let's see, as the episodes go on, if I get anything more on that end, then I'll start to explore that a bit more and start getting into that a bit more, if that possibility is there. That, if this side has Adam, does the other side have an Eve figure, right? Unless Claudia is meant to be representing that Eve figure, that's a possibility as well. It's possible. Let's see. I don't want to get too far into it just yet, because right now it's just a bit of a notion. But, if I get something more on that front, I'll certainly take a dive into that. Some of the other things, characters like Magnus, yes, he still has his suspicions about Franziska and her activities. There's that connection. There's something going on there. And in that sense, it was, again, a bit of a repeat of the first season, him kind of shadowing someone. Even the same music is playing at one point. The same score is being utilized as he approaches the caravan, right? You see his mom, Katharina, who's in the caves, and I feel like that might be the same map that Jonas ends up getting. This whole time I thought maybe that's Mikkel's map, because he must have tried at an older age to go back in the caves and make it through, right? Or find this crossing. But it's possible that maybe all of this was done by Katharina, and then somehow that map goes to someone else, right? It totally could be a totally different map, right? But to me, the way she opened it up and some of the layout of it, it was starting to feel like maybe this is the same map. And you see that she's frustrated. She's not able to find that crossing, or she's not really looking for the crossing, though, is she? She's looking for that gate, the door that's been shut. That was shut all that time ago by Alexander Tiedemann himself as a young adult. Yeah, maybe. I almost kind of debunked my own theory there, didn't I? But, it's not completely debunked. It's possible that it could be the same map. There's already set up here to indicate that, a lot of these things, a lot of these items have changed hands over time, right? You see that there's multiple copies of the Triquetra notebook. There's missing pages. That's one of the key elements of this episode as well. Adam telling him time's running out, right? I guess 6 days left. You have to find the missing pages. Oh, but that being said, is it possible that future Jonas is also looking for the pages, and that brings him back to his own house? That really strange moment of him kind of looking over as if something's buried under the floorboards. That one, there's not much to kind of connect the two, but the fact that Adam is looking for these pages, it means they're quite important. It also means that maybe Claudia also knows about the importance of these missing pages. And that notion isn't far-fetched anyways, missing pages from an important book, a really important book. So let's see, maybe the stranger is also on the hunt for the missing pages before time runs out. Anytime there's a situation, I'm always trying to, allocate some kind of explanation or theory to it. And I kind of use some of the stuff that's given to me in the episode to kind of maybe match up the things that are kind of left as a mystery. So you'll probably see much more of that as well as I continue the show. And of course, on the technical side of things, again, the photography, the visual storytelling is top notch. It continues on that trajectory. I love some of that apocalyptic imagery, their take on that. It's really quite haunting, though there is this sense of haunting beauty about it. At least I can only speak for myself, but maybe, to some of you that might sound strange, but there is a bit of haunting beauty about that imagery. There's a lot of really standout moments, him at the graveyard, him just in a street walking by, him at a random apartment, him at the school gym. And, you know, I just kind of have this thing. I've always had this thing for like empty spaces. You know, characters being lost in empty spaces, you know, apocalyptic situations essentially. And then, you know, I also have a thing for like small compartments, right? Be it in spaceships, in films, be it in science fiction shows or books. So, you know, him going into the bunker and him sleeping in his destroyed house, though the structure is still kind of intact. All of that is stuff I'm really kind of into. Imagery I'm really kind of into. I love to see people's take on, you know, a dystopian future or apocalyptic situation. And also, you know, I love this notion of an older version of a character and a younger version of a character, and then that kind of getting flipped. You know, you've seen Egon Tiedemann and Ulrich, right? Though I wasn't, I mean, I guess Ulrich and 1953 Egon are kind of like the same age, but you know what I mean, right? A younger Egon Tiedemann, then you have older Egon Tiedemann, young Ulrich, you have young Helge and Noah, you have older Helge and Noah, you have Bartosz and young Noah, and then you have older Noah and young Bartosz. I feel like that element is going to continue, and I love that. I really love that pairing aspect of this. And you know, now that they've shown me that, you know, someone like Bartosz ended up in 1920s as well, yeah, there's a lot of crazy things that are possible. You know, I think that might be it for this one. As always, you know, I'm sure the moment I turn off the camera, you know, the moment I stop this recording, something might occur to me, but I can always kind of, you know, move that to the next episode. And, you know, from that point on, anytime I kind of, you know, think of something, I always kind of take a note. I have like a notebook on the side here, and I always make a note of something that comes to mind, but I didn't get a chance to put into the discussion I'm recording, but it ends up making it into the next one. And I'm sure I'm going to be doing that a lot for this season. Wow, it's just jam-packed, right? But yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. Wow, that was a great episode. So if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're into full length, I can already tell this is going to be a tough one to edit down to 10 minutes, but it has to be done. But you know, full length allows you the entire episodes, timer based of course. But yeah, if you're into that, if you're interested, maybe also early access if you're into that, consider checking out the Patreon page. The link is in the description or the pinned comment. It's always at the top, right? And I use a pinned comment to make updates or give updates. If something seems to be late or it's not on the day it's supposed to come out, it's always the best practice to go check out the pinned comment. You can't miss it. It's the top comment in the comment section. Also, there's a link to my social media if you're into that, Twitter specifically. So consider checking that out. Right then, that's about it for this one. Thank you for joining me, and I'm really quite excited for the next episode, and I hope you join me for that. So until then, take it easy.